Jersey's own Zach Gelb. Or maybe it's Pennsylvania. Anyhow, it's one of the two, I'm pretty sure. The Zach Gelb Show continues on Fox Sports 920 The Jersey.
5:16 on a happy Monday. Eagles win. Jets win. Giants win. This is the Zach Gelb Show, Fox Sports 920 The Jersey. From the Princeton Orthopedic Associates Studios. Number, as always, 609-919-9200 in Bucks, Burlington, and Mercer counties. And now joining us on the hotline, former Bears scout, my good friend actually from Temple University, and that is Andre Odom, who joins us right now to talk some football and a little bit of the Philadelphia Eagles. Andre, what's happening, my man?
Zach, what's going on, my man? How are you?
I'm doing great, and I always love talking football with you. Big Eagles win yesterday. I thought this was going to happen. I didn't believe the score would be that lopsided. I had the Eagles 23-21. I have to ask you, though, everyone's talking about the defense because they were so impressive yesterday. How about the aggressiveness of head coach Doug Peterson? I love the game that he called yesterday.
Well, listen, it's a team effort down there. You know, Carson is awarded the luxury of essentially having 3 offensive coordinators in his ear at all times. You follow me? So there's not many quarterbacks in the league that can actually say that. And as far as the game plan, goes from yesterday, I felt as though it was an excellent game plan myself. And in addition to that, throughout the season, throughout the duration of the season to this point, there has been a ton of consistency with the play calling. There's been a ton of consistency with coming out with excellent game plans to keep the defenses off balance. And all credit goes to that entire coaching staff, specifically the offensive staff.
And I tweeted this out yesterday, and someone thought it was simplistic, but if you look after and define what I was saying, yesterday I saw that Doug Peterson was coaching to win. And someone could say, well, Zach, he tries to coach to win each and every week. But yesterday, going for it on 4th and 2 at the end of the first half really shows that, because if you only go into half with 8 points and a team that dominated really the Vikings in that first half, psychologically you may be thinking you should be up by more, and they ended up getting more of a lead because they went up 11-3. It's not the end of the world. It didn't decide the game, but that was a great decision yesterday by Doug.
I totally agree with you. I'll take it one step further, my man. Let's go back to the first aggressive call that he made.
The 2-point conversion.
Sending that offense back, exactly. Sending that offense back on the field, when you're 1 yard away from the end zone. I mean, that was incredible. If you think about it from a defensive perspective, you're on edge, and you do not have the luxury to be in control of a situation like that when the team decides to go for 2 points. The pressure is more so, in my personal opinion, on the defense as opposed to it being on the offense. So, especially with the mobile quarterback, your line's been playing great up until, this point in the game. So they've been controlling the line of scrimmage from what I saw from my perspective. So I felt like it was a great decision. I felt like the aggression was extremely calculated. It wasn't just him saying, hey, we're going to be macho, we're going to be aggressive, yada, yada, yada. No, it was calculated. He understood the fact that, hey, I can get 2 points here. And when a team sees that, they kind of sense blood. When you go up 8-0 or even 8-3, psychologically it's in your mind. And I'm speaking from experience because, that extra point comes into play, once you get later into the game and things of that nature. So I love the decision making. And it's funny because I was actually at the game yesterday, and I was with a few of my business associates, and they were like, "Hey, what is he doing? Why is he going for it?" And I'm like, "Well, think about it. If they can actually go up 8 points right now, right? That's going to be so much in their favor, not just now, but later as the game goes down also, because there's not many opportunities that you'll get to punch it in from 1 yard out." So I loved it.
They need to send a message, because on paper the Vikings are a better team, but they sent that message early by doing that, especially after the last 2 weeks, which were disappointing by the Philadelphia Eagles. And last week, everyone was trying to be a coach. Everyone was trying to be a GM. They were calling into this show. They were calling into every show in this area, and they were saying, oh, what is Doug Peterson doing going back to Big V? And I kept on saying, be patient. Trust this guy. He's put this team in a spot this year that exceeded everyone's expectations, and the offensive line played a good game yesterday, and that was because there was no other alternatives, and their coach trusted their personnel.
No, that's exactly right, and he really did trust Big V, and my hat goes off to him, because if you go back and literally break down that tape from a week ago, Big V looked abysmal. I mean, It was bad. He looked confused out there, and at times you could tell that he was extremely overwhelmed. But for a coach to have, the faith in him and, obviously for trusting Big V, but trusting the entire process and the staff, the coaching, et cetera, and the game plan, I mean, it showed a lot. And you could tell yesterday he played well, and that was against a very, very stout defensive front. Obviously, they're missing a few guys. Sharif Floyd specifically, the three technique, but even with that said, I mean, those guys are very much formidable, still to this point. So for Big V to go out there and play the game that he played yesterday, it was impressive, and I'm very happy for the young man. I expect nothing but good things moving forward.
Andre Odom with us on the Zach Gelb Show. I want to get to this, though, because not everything yesterday was perfect for the Eagles. We know that. The offense was not great compared to other weeks. Carson Wentz and Jason Kelce, what was going on there? Because you saw a few times Carson Wentz not control the football properly.
So here's the thing. Now, I'd be inclined to say that I'm pretty much on an island with this. Okay. I'm not a fan of Jason Kelce's. I'm not. And this dates back to actually a year ago to that Pittsburgh Steelers game when I first got back home to the East Coast from Chicago, and I literally was breaking down the Eagles team because I needed to know what was going on. And I'm just looking at Kelce. I believe it was Ziggy Hood, who was just collapsing the pocket. I mean, he shows marginal anchor, which is extremely critical for an offensive lineman, specifically those interior guys, the two guards in the center. Your anchor has to be extremely stout because if not, you'll end up in the quarterback's lap. And when the quarterback can't step up in the pocket, that's a recipe for disaster. So I'm not really a fan of Jason Kelce's. However, he does add value, but not when you're running a pro-style offense where you want to line up and sometimes you need that yard, right? And when you need that yard, you got to line up, you got to run power, smash mouth, man-on-man blocking scheme. That's not his game. He's more of a get out on the edge, uses athleticism, chop guys down, things of that nature. So as far as him being in an offense like this, which is predicated on a ton of man blocking outside of when they run their inside and outside zone scheme, he's going to struggle. So I'm not really a fan of his, with all due respect.
I'm not the biggest Jason Kelce fan, but to be fair, though, yesterday, I thought those mistakes when it comes to handling the football were more on Wentz, because you even saw it when he tried to, early in the game, hand the ball off to, I believe it was Sproles, and Wentz didn't do the best job protecting the football, and I thought he was to blame there for the fumble. For sure.
Now, my thing with this, I'm not attempting to give Carson a pass or anything of that, but I will say this. I'm not worried about that.
Same.
Because, a young man like that who has, he's extremely industrious. He's extremely intelligent. He's a worker. I mean, this guy is a football guy. He'll correct that. And I'm sure he'll be the first one to hold himself accountable and say, hey, I have to take care of the football. I have to do a better job. He will never throw his guys under a bus because he's just not that type of guy. He believes in accountability and things of that nature. So I'm not worried about that. And I totally agree with what you're saying, and I understand where you are coming from, you and the fans also. Things like that happen, though. You're playing against the top defense in football. The pressure's mounting. Everyone's calling you a prodigy, yada, yada, yada. And I'm not alluding to the fact that the noise is getting to him. I'm just saying that it's football. It was a ton of crosswinds yesterday that were very, very poor at the game. So, there's a ton of different elements that played into that, but I don't worry about that moving forward.
I love Wentz. I think he's the real deal, and I even played a clip earlier in the show that I was just so impressed with one of the answers that he said, and he just remains so cool, calm, and collective. He looks like he's a 10-year vet. Yes, all quarterbacks are going to make mistakes, and the one we're picking at, we're really being nitpicking, looking at how good this guy has been this year. This was someone, though, Andre, that last year he was at North Dakota State. He wasn't playing in front of 65,000 people. How does he do it? Because he looks so cool.
All right, so this is what myself, Brian Baldinger, and Anthony, we were all discussing, and Vi also, Vi Sukahema. We were all discussing this last week. And my point to the situation was this. This young man is just wired differently. It's almost as if he was created, but he wasn't created because you can see the genuineness in his conversations with the media, with his coaching staff, with his teammates. This is not an act. This is who this guy is. And some people are just wired differently. And luckily for us, we have this guy because, mentally, emotionally, physically, he has the entire package that you look for in a football player, not just a quarterback. But then when you narrow it down and you look at it from a micro standpoint, he has the entire package, for any quarterback that you will want. I mean, he has phenomenal retention. He has the ability to process information, but he also has an innate ability to. I want to make sure I say this right. He has the innate ability to not just make great decisions, but make great decisions fast. And I think that's one of the things that a lot of people fail to realize, that at the quarterback position, you must execute consistently. You must make great decisions fast. I mean, because it's okay to make great decisions, but if you're not making them fast enough, they turn into what? Turnovers. So this kid right here has that ability, and the sky's the limit for him. I mean, I don't want to speak too fast, but I mean, this kid is phenomenal, man, top to bottom.
Really, when I break him down each and every week, I come on the air and I say, oh, this is the most impressive part of this game. At first, it was his demeanor. Then it was his footwork. Then it was his touch. Then it was making everyone around him better. Really, what I've seen so far, even in this last 3-week stretch where the team hasn't played great, he still puts the team in a position to win even when they're down in games. And that is a promising sign.
If you're a fan, or if you're, or if you're one of his, one of his colleagues or anything like that, you have to have a certain level of adoration for this kid, because, he just seems to muster up, the guts, the will to, the want to actually make things happen when they need to happen. And as you just alluded to, he always seems to find a way. Some people have that. They possess that one tangible thing that you can always find a way to make a play or make your team come back from a deficit, i.e., for example, Russell Wilson. Those guys have that it factor. And other guys, they just don't have it. So it's just something that you can't teach. You have it or you don't, in my personal opinion. I'm sure others may agree, but some may disagree. But this kid has that it factor for sure.
Andre Odom with us right now on the Zach Gelb Show. Okay, let's get to the defense, because that defense was sensational yesterday. What did you see out of that defensive unit?
Well, first and foremost, I'll preface my statement by saying that the Vikings' offensive line were horrendous yesterday.
Yeah, they were.
I mean, they really were. They were bad. I mean, if you're – and I'm just standing there looking at it just from a field vantage point, and I'm just like, the defensive line completely dominated the football game yesterday. They controlled the line of scrimmage. They played on the opposite side of the line of scrimmage, what you want out of your defensive line. And it was consistent. I mean, it was a whooping from the beginning to the end. And kudos to the defense, the front four, the linebackers, the secondary. They showed up yesterday. They did. No excuses, just results. They showed up yesterday, and they played relentless. They got to the ball. They created pressure. They made plays. And that's what it's all about. And I'm sure Coach Schwartz, I'm sure he had a phenomenal time watching that film today or last night whenever he watched it, because that's what you coach and that's what you expect on a week-in and week-out basis from your unit.
Now, I don't expect this team to be lights out each and every week on the defensive side of the ball. They do have a good defensive unit, but I'll ask a question a lot of fans are wondering today. The last 2 games before the Vikings game were really bad defensively. How do they go from being that bad to that good?
Zach, one simple answer. The play of the offensive line from your opponent.
Okay.
It's simple. Because if you go back and watch that Washington Redskins tape, that offensive line that the Redskins have, they're dominant. They're not too far behind from that Cowboys offensive line. And you saw, and the thing about this wide 9 scheme, with all due respect, it's a good scheme and it has its perks, right? But when you're going up against a massive offensive line, a ton of guys that just love to maul you, like the Redskins, like the Cowboys, offensive lines like that, you're going to struggle because you have to have linebackers that are dogs. And when I mean dogs, I mean they have to be able to stack and shed off blocks immediately and make plays, because that defensive line, Their job isn't to cover up those offensive lines to prevent you from being reached or from being blocked. Their job is to get the field. They play to run on the way to the quarterback. So there's pros and cons to everything, and those are some of the pros and cons right there. So when you have for example, Jordan Hicks is a very good athlete, right? Charlie Strong actually made a point to say that Jordan Hicks may be one of, if not the best linebacker he's ever coached. However, Jordan Hicks going up against a Brandon Sheriff or someone like that, he's going to be overmatched because he's not that physically big. So when you're going up against those massive offensive linemen that are animals mindset-wise and athletically, you're going to struggle, and that's what happened versus the Redskins. And I personally anticipate that happening versus the Cowboys too, because the Cowboys' offensive line just may be the best in the National Football League.
And we've seen that at times this year where Hicks has not looked as good as last year. I'm just wondering, because we've seen it before in the National Football League, some smaller linebackers just able to fight through that and produce. How do they do that?
It depends on the defensive line that you have in front of you. You know, I have to give you an example for sure. So take the Minnesota Vikings, for example. Chad Greenway. Last year, Chad Greenway had a heck of a season. This year, Chad's struggling a little bit. Actually, he'll be the first one to say, you know, and lament to the fact that he's struggling a bit from a statistical standpoint because he isn't being protected as he was last year. So last year, a guy by the name of Sharif Floyd, I hate to bring him up again, he's one of the best three techniques in football, in my personal opinion. He's taking on a double team every play. So that's leaving Chad free to roam and get to the football and make those plays. So when the linebackers aren't covered and they don't have to worry about stacking and shedding those big, massive offensive linemen, they can make more plays. But when you have to worry about that, when your defensive line isn't doing their job and protecting you, then you're going to struggle. And that's the thing that you see, especially with those smaller linebackers. Yes, they do have speed and things of that nature, but this is a big man's football game. You know, you're going against big men, so you have to have the ability to get off of those blocks and get away from those big boys.
Andre, let me ask you this because I value your football opinion. I know his offensive line was horrendous yesterday, and that's kind of ironic because we thought it was going to be the Eagles' offensive line and not the Vikings that was going to play a bad game. Is Sam Bradford a good quarterback?
All right. Again, I'm always going to be honest with you. I was one of the only ones in this Philadelphia market that was standing on the table for Sam Bradford, and
really?
I still stand on the table. I was because I personally, the skill set that Sam Bradford possesses, you can't teach that. That is a rare skill set when it comes to accuracy, when it comes to the ability to drive the ball deep, when it comes to the ability of making those great decisions. He has it. The thing that's unfortunate for Sam Bradford is Sam's been beat up so much throughout his career, not just in the NFL, but dating back to college. So it's almost as if, you know, I understand a lot of people call him brittle and things like that, but it's pretty true. I mean, this guy's been beat up a lot. And now, you know, he started out the first 5 games on fire. And let's remember, he's only been there 7 weeks. So he still doesn't have the entire offensive scheme grasped. He doesn't have his hands around the entire scheme, so he's still learning on the fly also. But now you package that with the fact that the Vikings lost 3 offensive tackles, right? They lost one of their top guards also. So now he's playing with, you know, guys that they just signed off the street like Jake Long and all these other guys that I believe it's safe to say and call those guys pedestrian at this point. I mean, they're just guys out there, and he's being beat up again. And you saw it yesterday. This man was hit seemingly every other play. So how can you expect for a quarterback to produce and be accurate and drive the ball and have phenomenal ball placement, things of that nature, when every time he's dropping back, seemingly every other play, he's being punched in his mouth? I don't care how tough you are from a mental standpoint or from a physical standpoint. If your body parts are laying across the field every single week, week in and week out, or every other play in a game, you're going to feel those effects, and it's going to start affecting your psyche. Your decision making will absolutely go south. You know, in my personal opinion, some people may disagree, but that's what I see. And I like Sam Bradford, and I stand on that. I still think he's a good quarterback. If he had a really good offensive line that was consistently protecting him, then he would be on fire, in my opinion. I really do believe that, because if you look at some of the other quarterbacks around the league who are doing well for themselves, they don't possess the same skill set that Sam has from a physical standpoint. And it's not as if Sam's not a good leader. I believe from all the conversations that I've had, this man has the intangibles also, not just the tangible skill set. So it's just one of those situations where out of all his entire time in the National Football League, this is the first time he's had the opportunity to be on a really good football team with some good weapons around him and things of that nature. But now, as you saw yesterday, he's struggling again because the offensive line just played bad.
Andre Odom with us on the Zach Gelb Show. You're one of the few on Sam Bradford. I'll give you that, because I get your point with the offensive line, and there is no one more than me in the last few years, especially on the two stations I'm on, that have preached more offensive line and have given the coaching cliche of the game is won in the trenches more than anyone. For me, though, when I look at Sam Bradford, it's just a turnover machine. That's what I see. And I just feel like you look at the Eagles last year with the Eagles, I think it was 8 or 9 games where he threw at least one interception, and some of those games are multiple interception games. To me, that's not a recipe for success.
That's very true. It's a phenomenal point. Now, let's look at it from this perspective also, right? So down here in the Philadelphia market, a ton of people are – they're just biting at the bits to get a big play receiver in here, to get some real weapons in there for Carson Wentz. Well, let's remember that Sam Bradford was playing with those same receivers last year, minus Dorial Green-Beckham. Let's remember that Sam Bradford was playing with that same offensive line last year, and in my personal opinion, I felt like they were worse last year because they were in a system that wasn't suitable for their skill set. So, you're seeing, the thing that Carson possesses that Sam doesn't is the athletic ability. If Carson didn't possess that athletic ability that he does, he'd be getting beat up just like Sam Bradford was getting beat up. And again, here's the thing. Tom Brady is my favorite quarterback, arguably, of all time.
You're speaking music to my ears right now, Andre, because I love him.
and that's why I love talking to you, because you're a real football guy. You understand that. We're talking about the best quarterback to ever play the game of football, right?
And you know what he does best?
Let me ask you a question.
You know what he does
What's
best?
that?
It's make people around him better. And to me, Carson Wentz makes people around him better, and Sam Bradford doesn't.
Now, here's the thing. I saw Tom Brady out of his entire career. He played some of the worst football ever in his career versus the New York Giants in 2 Super Bowls.
Offensive line.
You know why?
Offensive line. You're exactly right.
Offensive line. He looked like an absolute JV quarterback out there. It was simple. So when you're consistently getting, even if they don't hit you consistently, when you're constantly being pressured, it gets to you. Tom Brady was rattled. He was pissed off. And when Tom gets pissed off, Tom doesn't necessarily play his best football, even though some people may think so. He doesn't, because it's just too much to embrace at one point when you're constantly being pressured or constantly being hit. I do the same comparison for Sam Bradford. He's constantly being hit. He's being beat up. But when he's protected and in a situation where he can make those plays, he makes the play. Now, you may not be seeing him driving the ball deep and going for those big plays now because, again, he's still learning the system. I think people fail to realize that. He's only been there for 7 weeks. So it takes time. You're comparing him to the quarterbacks that's been in the same system for years.
And with
minus Carson Wentz, obviously.
Yeah, and with Tom Brady, it's still amazing. The butt beating that he took in both those Super Bowls against the Giants still put the team in a position to win, because they went up in that 2007 Super Bowl, and it was the defense that couldn't stop David Tyree.
Very true. Very true. And, again, I attribute that to Tom Brady's greatness. I will never compare Sam Bradford to Tom Brady and say that he's as great as the GOAT. Tom TB12 is the GOAT. But what I'm saying is Sam Bradford is a good quarterback. You don't get drafted number 1 overall for no reason. Obviously there's been some number 1 overall busts, and those guys should have never been drafted that high. But Sam Bradford isn't those guys. He's just not. He's a good quarterback, in my opinion. I stand on that.
Last one, as Andre Odom joins us right now. Yesterday, I really felt going into the game that the Eagles, the way that they would win the game is to play team football. You knew they had to make plays in all 3 phases of the game. Did you have a feeling going into the game? Because I did. I thought it was going to be Sproles who would have the big special teams play, but it was Huff. Did you have a feeling they would have a big special teams play if they were going to win this game?
If you just look at the entire team and that special teams unit specifically, they're consistently playing good football.
Very good point.
They're led by a very good coach who, in my opinion, I believe he'll become a head coach one of these days, or maybe in a few years. So you could just sense it coming. I couldn't tell you specifically who it would have been. Yeah, I could have said it was Sproles because we all know Sproles is arguably the best playmaker on the team. But when you have a unit that's constantly playing and executing at a very high level, you just know that, you know what, guys, it's coming. And I'm sure the coaches down there are telling those guys also, hey, it's coming. Just trust the process. Stay patient. Keep working. Let's all stay sound in our assignments and be disciplined. I guarantee you the big plays are coming. And yesterday you saw it, and it actually changed the format, the entire format of the game.
Andre, love you, brother. Always love talking football with you. Thanks so much.
Love you too, my brother. Hey, I appreciate it, man. Have a great one.
Thanks so much. There's Andre Odom joining us on the Zach Gelb Show, Fox Sports 920 The Jersey. What a good job by Andre. That man knows how to break down football. Zach Gelb Show, Fox Sports 920 The Jersey, 609-919-9200 is the number. So a big win for the Eagles yesterday, and that sets up a very big game. Sunday night, Eagles and Cowboys. No one wants to see the cockroach Cowboys win. Hopefully the Eagles take down their nice rookie stories of Dak Prescott and Ezekiel Elliott. When we get back, Gronk said something funny. Scottie Pippen can't sing, and an awful football game last night.